Hello student, my name is Gaetan. Today we are discussing on the topic the Arab-Israel conflict, the Vietnam War, the Chinese Socialist Revolution. Let us see each topic one by one. The first one, the Arab-Israel conflict. For that, student, what do you mean by Zionism? Zionism was a movement that began in the 19th century, then grew steadily mainly through the effort of European Jew Theodor Herzl. Theodor Herzl, he was born in Hungary and died in Austria. He was Austro-Hungarian journalist and activist. He was the founder of Zionism movement. This movement was expanded into different parts of the world during the time of First World War. The main aim of this movement to create an independent state for Jews. To get a solution, the Jew state asked Britain. At the same time, the Palestinian Arab asked British. In 1915, Britain had promised Palestine to the Arabs. Again, in 1917, during the time of First World War, the Balfour Declaration promised that Palestine to the Jew. First for the Arabs, second for Jew. This was the main cause of conflict between Arab and Israel. The basic cause at the time, there was rivalry between Arab nationalists and Jew nationalists. During the time of Second World War, there were a Holocaust in the different parts of the world, especially by Nazi Germany. After the end of Second World War, the Jews asked different questions to get their own land, to get the promised land. According to the Jew, the promised land, including Palestine. UN Commission voted in 1947 Arab state and Jew state. The Jew accepted the solution of UN. On the other side, the Arab nationalists rejected and opposed the idea. On May 14, 1948, British withdrew from Palestine. At the same time, the Jews in Palestine immediately declared establishment of an independent Jewish republic they call Israel, with the capital city of Tel Aviv. Tel Aviv became the capital of Israel. Jerusalem under UN supervision. Since its establishment 1948 up to 1973, the four struggle between Jew and Arabs. Let us see each struggle one by one. The first one, on 1948, war broke out immediately after the establishment of Israel in Palestine. The five Arab states, Egypt, Syria, Lebanon, Transjordan, and Iraq, declared war on Israel. In the war, the Israel attack or Israel defeated the force of Arab, the only successful Arab state. Mind you, student, the only successful Arab state was Transjordan. Finally, the UN mediated ceasefire and agreement which ended the war. But after the end of Arab-Israel war, the first Arabs, mind you, after the end of the first Arab-Israel war, Fatah, guerrilla group, the Black September was organized. In the war, 750,000 Palestinian Arabs leave the country that had been their homeland. They leave the country. Second Arab-Israel war. This war, also known as the Suez Canal War or the Suez Crisis. The second Arab-Israel war broke out on 1956. This happened Egyptian leaders Gamal Abdel Nasser initiating the war. On the side of Israel, Britain and France was involved. Britain, France were the supporter of Israel. But Eisenhower, he was the US president at the time, unhappy about the Suez War. Then the UN peacekeeping force separate Israel and Egypt. The third, before starting the third Arab-Israel war, PLO was formed. PLO means Palestinian Liberation Organization. It was formed in 1964. It formed a government in exile and carried on guerrilla war against the state of Israel. The famous and the long-year leaders of this PLO organization was Yasser Arafat. Yasser Arafat was the leader of PLO for a long period of time. After that, in 1967, the rise of Third Arab-Israel War. It also called the Six-Day War. The Six-Day War. It was started by Egypt, Gamal Abdel Nasser from Egypt, Iraq, Jordan, Transjordan, and Syria was involved in the war. Moshe Dayan, he was Israel Minister of Defense, decided to start primitive strike against the Arab state. At the time, USA, Britain, and West Germany assist Israel. On the other side, USSR or Russia was the supporter of the Arab state. The war between June 5 up to June 10, 1967. After the war, Israel Air Force had destroyed Nasser Air Force in Egypt. Israel troops reached the Suez Canal. On June 10, 1967, there was ceasefire between the Arab states and Israel. After the end of the Third Arab-Israel War, Israel captured, or a buffer zone of Israel was Golan Heights, West Bank, Gaza Strip, Sinai Peninsula. Those are the buffer zone of Israel. By 1970, President Nasser of Egypt was died. He was succeeded by Anwar Sadat in 1972. In 1972, there was a Munich Olympic, or the Munich Olympic, in the West Germany. At the Munich Olympic, the Israel athletes was massacred by PLO agent. The Palestinian Liberation Organization agent attacked Israel athlete. Israel lost 11 athletes. After Munich Olympic, there was a war between Israel and Arab states. This war was known as the Fourth Arab-Israel War. The war also known as Yom Kippur War, because the Arab began to conflict with a surprise attack on Israel holiday. Yom Kippur, a Jewish religious holiday. Israel were advancing deep into both Egypt and Syria. On 1978, President Anwar Sadat of Egypt signed a Camp David agreement. Mind you, student, the Camp David agreement was 1978. The first Arab leader recognized the independence of Jewish state was Anwar Sadat. He was the first Arab leaders recognize the independence of Israel. The next topic, the Vietnam War. Vietnam was formed part of French colony of Indochina in the Southeast Asia since 1880s. During the time of Second World War, the area was conquered by Japan. But after the end of Second World War, the French again captured the area. The time, starting from 1941, Ho Chi Minh started a peasant-based resistance movement to against Japan and other countries. By the way, the first country in the world defeated the two superpowers, France and USA, was defeated by the Vietnam, Ho Chi Minh. Ho Chi Minh, he started a movement called Viet Minh. The leader was Ho Chi Minh, the movement was Viet Minh. The French aimed at decolonizing Vietnam, and the war came to be known as Dirty War. The Dirty War was started 1946 up to 1954. That war was known as Dirty War. In 1954, as the Battle of Dien Bien Pho, mind you students, the Battle of Dien Bien Pho, Vietnam defeated French force. About 60,000 French troops was surrendered to Vietnam in 1954. In 1954, the Geneva Conference also attended by a representative of USA, Britain, USSR, and China. At the conference, France formally accepted the end of its rule in Vietnam, including Vietnam, Indochina, Cambodia, and Laos. Those states become independent. The base of Ho Chi Minh was Saigon. Saigon nowadays, Ho Chi Minh City. Ho Chi Minh City. Among the agreement of the superpower for the division of Vietnam into North and South at 17 parallel. The division created the North Vietnam under the leadership of Ho Chi Minh, the North Vietnam socialist country, while the South Vietnam under the leadership of Nguyen Dinh Diem. Nguyen Dinh Diem, he was the leader of South Vietnam. The North Vietnam leaders, Ho Chi Minh, organized a secret group in South Vietnam. That group was known as Viet Cong. Mind you student, Viet Cong was organized by North Vietnam secretly in the South. In 1916, a group of South Vietnam known as Viet Cong are set up guerrilla fight. This marked the outbreak of civil war between Viet Cong, supported by Vietnam, and the government of South Vietnam that was led by Nguyen Dinh Diem. USA involved on the side of South Vietnam. USSR, China involved on the side of North Vietnam. The communists provided the powerful in 1964. 40% of South Vietnam fell under the control of Viet Cong. The American Congress voted for US President Lyndon Johnson's request to against North Vietnam by using aerial bombing in the North Vietnam. At that time, USA also supported by Australia, New Zealand, and South Korea. On the other side, the Vietnam Communist state was supported by USSR and China. They successfully resisted the effort of USA. The USA force used a modern weapons that produced in the post-Second World War military technology like massive bombing, anti-personnel weapons, napalm, by other weapons, but not successful. Then a policy of Vietnamization. Vietnamization policy was introduced by President Nixon. He was overthrown from the power by Watergate scandal. In 1969, he declared Vietnamization policy that was due to heavy American laws and opposition rise from in America. Then USA withdrew from Vietnam on February 1973. On February 1973, Henry Kissinger, he was U.S. Secretary of State, mediated a ceasefire. Then, on 1974, Vietnam became an independent state. The North and South Vietnam became united since 1974. Student, the next topic, the Chinese Socialist Revolution. Between 1644 up to 1911, China was a feudal empire under the leadership of Manchu or Chang dynasty. By the way, the Chinese state for the first time organized by Han dynasty. The Manchu dynasty took political power in the 17th century. Starting from 17th century up to the early 20th century, China was ruled by one dynasty that was known as Chang dynasty. After the period of civil war between Chinese warlords, the Kuomintang and the Communist Party of China took power in alliance since 1926. But the Kuomintang was a bourgeois nationalist. Kuomintang was bourgeois nationalist. The head of Kuomintang was Dr. Sun Yat-sen. Dr. Sun Yat-sen. He was the founder of Kuomintang Party. He was a nationalist and anti-imperialist and was respected by Chinese communists. After the days of Dr. Sun Yat-sen, the Kuomintang was ruled by Chiang Kai-shek. Chiang Kai-shek, he took power after the days of Dr. Sun Yat-sen. The other group, the Chinese Communist Party, CPC, Communist Party of China. It was founded in 1921. The founder, Deng Zhu and Deng Zhu and Deng Zhu was the founder of CPC party in China. The Chiang Kai-shek was not in favor with the alliance with the CPC party. As a result of this, starting from 1927, the war was started between Kuomintang and communists. The Kuomintang was led by Chiang Kai-shek. On the other side, Deng Zhu was the ruler of communists. On 1927, he dissolved the alliance and started attack on communists. Then the Chinese communists made a long march. Mind you, the long march, it included 9,000 kilometers. 9,000 kilometers. Out of 100,000 persons that set out for a journey, 3/4 persist before they reached the new base area in the northern part of China. During the voyage, Mao Zedong emerged as the leader of Communist Party of China. Student, who was Mao Zedong? Mao, the founder of modern China, or the father of modern China, was Mao. In 1937, outbreak of the war, Sino-Japan War, in 1937. Student, we learn important things from this lesson. At that time, there was a common enemy. The common enemy was Japan. Both Kuomintang and communists organized and against Japan since 1937. Later, following the surrender of Japan in 1945, again Kuomintang and communists started a civil war. During the war, there was a ceasefire between communists and Kuomintang. After independence, there was the beginning of civil war between communists and Kuomintang. In the struggle, the following are the advantage of Kuomintang. The first one, Kuomintang fighters force outnumbered the communist force a 3-to-1 ratio at the beginning. Second advantage, Chiang Kai-shek government was assisted by United States of America. The other advantage, Soviet Union recognized Kuomintang government as the only legal authority in China. Those are the advantage of Kuomintang party at the beginning of the war. In 1946, the civil war was started when the Kuomintang army started a massive attack against communist stronghold in the northern China. Later, Kuomintang government suffered inflation, corruption, poor military strategy, or they hastened its defeat. On January 1949, the Communist Party captured Beijing. Beijing nowadays is the capital city of China. While the communists fled to Taiwan or Formosa, they founded Chiang Kai-shek government at Taipei. Between 1953 up to 1957, the Mao 5-year plan, the first 5-year plan of Mao Zedong. This 5-year plan was known as transition to socialism. Transition to socialism. This was the first 5-year plan of Mao on 1953 up to 1957. This plan emphasized heavy industry and collectivization of agriculture. Collectivization of agriculture, heavy industry. This was the first 5-year plan of Mao Zedong, 1953 up to 1957. In 1958, another more ambitious plan of Mao, Great Leap Forward. The Great Leap Forward was declared in 1958. Mao introduced this plan, Great Leap Forward, during second 5-year plan. A large farmer were organized into rural cooperative and the communes. But Great Leap Forward was responsible for the famine of China since 1958 up to 1962, which killed by hundreds of thousands of people in China. China made at the time significant progress in the industrialization. The Chinese friend relation with Soviet Union did not last long. In 1915, the two countries were closely related to Soviet Union policy of de-Stalinization. De-Stalinization policy was declared by Nikita Khrushchev. Nikita Khrushchev, he declared de-Stalinization policy. According to Mao, mind you student, according to Mao, Russia was revisionist. Revisionism means the Soviet Union goes to capitalism. Mind you, Soviet Union goes back to capitalism. So, according to Mao perspective, Maoism was the most modern and correct form of Marxism and Leninism. The correct form of Marxism and Leninism was Maoism, according to Mao. Then, in 1969, the Soviet relation reached a low point. China had become one of the great powers of the world, especially Chinese tested their atomic bomb in 1964. Then China has improved its relation with USA after 1964. Student, this is all about today's topic. This all about what I have. Thank you very much.